Hey, good afternoon, aftermarket peeps in North America. Carm Capriato, the Moneyball episode. This is going to be so much fun and very profound, I believe, as you learn some of the ideas that we have to share with you. I think it's going to change how you may look at all of your people and how you manage your KPIs. Hey, it's good to have you here. By the way, the Apex's awards are coming up. The deadline is coming up in just a very few weeks at the end of August 31st, Wednesday, August 31st. Shop owner, service advisor, technician of the year. On my panel, I just so happen to have last year's technician of the year with me. Please give a consideration to someone that you know that's had an exemplary year, is doing a lot of great things for the industry and your business or their business. AAPEXshow.com/service awards. Hey, I'd like you to meet my panel. So let me tell you, the logistics to pull the entire Aftermarket Radio Network together was, it really worked well. I thank you all for finding time in your schedule to do this. Matt Fonslow, shop manager, Riverside Automotive, Red Wing, Minnesota, from Diagnosing the Aftermarket A to Z. Hello, Matt.
Hello, sir.
And Matt is the technician of the year from Apex last year.
For a few more months.
Yeah, a few more months. The reigning.
Yes.
Back-to-back champ?
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting. Coach Chris Cotton is here. AutoFix Auto Shop Coaching from the Chris Cotton Weekly Blitz podcast. Hey, Chris.
Hey, how are you guys doing? And because I'm moving my daughter into Texas State, I'm going to give everybody, if there's any Texas State fans out there, eat 'em up cats.
Good for you, Chris. Is this her first year, freshman?
She's a sophomore, so
Sophomore.
We moved her into her first adult apartment today. So mom and I get her settled in and then leave.
I remember.
Yeah,
I remember doing that for Tracy. Oh, you talk about the growing up thing, huh?
Oh yeah.
Hunt Demarest is with us. CPA Parmelis, Business by the Numbers podcast. Hey, Hunt.
Hey, Carm. Thanks for having me.
Glad you're here. And Kim and Brian Walker, Shop Marketing Pros, the Auto Repair Marketing Podcast.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Carm.
Hey, guys. Thanks for being here. A really quick shout out to our great sponsors. Your shop's customers pump their own gas and bag their own groceries. And most of them don't mind booking online or even paying you via a live chat bubble in a self-service universe. Get up to speed at getshopware.com. Hey, and did you clean the fuel tank the last time you replaced a fuel pump? Well, contamination buildup in the tank not only impacts the vehicle's performance, but it can also damage the fuel pump. Clean the fuel tank in 5 minutes with Delphi Technologies fuel tank cleaning tool. Learn more at delphiaftermarket.com. Hey, if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and thanks. So this next Friday, customer amenities, Rachel Spencer, Matthew Lockowitzer, and George Gilligan got some really cool stuff to show you. You'll be surprised to the level that they go to make their customers feel jiggy all over. Hey, Matt and I talk often. If not, we're sharing texts, emails, or Slack. And he calls me with some of the most off-the-wall ideas, and he says, Carm, we got to do a Moneyball episode. I go, explain that one to me. We're talking Jupiter here. Let's get down to earth. And after he explained it to me, I said, I am so bought in. I would love to be able to bring the network together, and it actually did happen. And I think every one of us has rewatched the movie Moneyball, and it is so much to do with taking a look at your people from a completely different perspective. You always don't have to hire home run hitters or rock stars to build a great and a solid team. So Matt, I'd love for you to start bringing the premise, and it started by me watching the Simon Sinek video, and we'll make sure we put that link in the show notes, about SEAL Team 6.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things going on. I kind of worry with some of these ideas. I just get, smashed over the head with too many different lines of things converging and maybe not mixing the way I would hope they would. But the initial premise was a personal experience at the shop where I felt like I was deserving of a pay bump. and kind of told no. I kind of went on a rampage of finding information to back up this desire. And the initial numbers I'm looking at for production hours really didn't support my position. And it turned out I found something else that was probably more powerful in my favor, is that when I would go to trainings or trade shows or whatever, when I was gone, shop production plummeted. And I'm not talking like a little bit. It was insane. You could circle the dates. Matt's not here. Shop production falls to drastically. So that's kind of what got me the pay increase I was after. And then thinking about the movie and player evaluations and what are you paying for as a manager or an owner, somebody that's writing out the checks to people? What are you buying? And you're talking about in the movie Moneyball, the owners are thinking about buying players. That's part of this rant by Peter Brand, played by Jonah Hill. They're thinking about it wrong. And so as a shop owner, what are you buying? As a manager, when you're writing out paychecks, what are you paying for? And I think you're paying for shop production hours. That's right. That leads to profits. And from that premise, I think you have to step back and sometimes take a 10,000 foot view of the operation and how everybody integrates together to generate that end goal of profitability and shop production. And that's really what got the ball rolling on this idea.
And what sold me, everyone, was your analogy about the NBA.
Yeah,
it sold me, and I said that is such a parallel to our industry.
And sports, right? A lot of people watch, not baseball especially, but basketball is kind of getting there too, where of course watching the game. But then there's the stats, watching the statistics and paying attention to statistics. And the NBA, to start kind of getting an idea of the value that a player brings to a team, created something called regularized. Let's see. I think. Oh yeah, regularized average plus minus, meaning when they're on the floor versus off the floor, how does that affect the overall team's performance? And what you would find is the heavy hitters are at the top, the ones you would expect: Kobe Bryant, LeBron James. Those names are usually at the top. Michael Jordan. But then you'd have these weird names pop up: Nick Collison, John Koncak. Who are these people? And they're little more than bench players, or they don't get tons of time. But it turns out they do things that allow their team to win. They do things that allow the main offensive weapon to get open and shoot or drive to the basket, score. You see it in hockey. The goons, they're paid a lot of money. You would never look at a stat line and go, they're worth all this money, but they're the reason that the superstars stay protected and get open to either pass or shoot. So how does this apply to the shop? I think it applies quite well. It's just, again, you got to step back and look. You have to really watch what contributes to production. And once you really understand that, I think you can start looking at the other dynamics that you have with people that maybe aren't just churning hours, but they enable others to do their jobs better, or they bring something to the table that's intangible.
I got to go to Brian next. So importantly, Brian, you had a shop years ago, which makes you so qualified to be a marketer for automotive shops, and they have your own podcast on our network. Great story about someone who fits this exact analogy.
Yeah, when I saw Matt's idea for this show, it stuck out to me immediately that I had one of the techs like he's talking about in my shop. So my shop was full of high producers. We were a Euro shop, so we were working on a lot of the same cars over and over. But my guys would consistently turn 60 to 80 hours a week. And that was pretty much everyone in the shop, except for this one guy. And he would turn 30 hours, every week, give or take 5 hours. And, if he hit that 35, it was a good week for him. But the thing is, he was so dependable. Like, we could give him anything to work on. He would never complain about it. He never had comebacks. You could count on it that no matter what we gave him, it was going to be fixed, and it was going to be fixed right. And he also brought a lot to the culture of the company. You know, the other techs they enjoyed working with him. They looked at him as a leader. You know, he was that guy that, I mean, yeah, he was killing our per bay productivity on paper, but when it came down to it, he added so much to the shop that even if he was personally only turning 15 or 20 hours a week, you know, looking back on how much value he brought, I would have been very happy with that.
Thanks for that. You know, Chris, I want to go to you next as a coach in the industry. I know that, and I've talked to enough coaches that says, listen, you always need to be recruiting talent. And when you find some really new, if you will, unicorn or superstar, replace your B or C player. This almost goes in contrast to that.
It does, but we should always still, you know, have a strong bench, right? Like, we should always be one of my big issues as a shop owner was I wasn't always recruiting, and I probably turned away a lot of great technicians. But as an owner, I probably didn't have my head out of the clouds, we shall say, enough to notice what was going on with some of these other people. Like, I knew the producers, and the producers were great, but the ones that weren't, I didn't have a metric to track it. I never thought about it. But now, since we've started looking at this, then it makes me think, okay, so one, the shop owner has to be aware enough to recognize the people that aren't quote unquote top producers and what they're bringing to the table. And then how do we track that? So, you know, shop owners, we have KPIs. We have like 25. Other coaching companies have like 100 KPIs. But recently I've been working on like what I call a scorecard for success for like the different departments. So you could have a scorecard for success with 5 KPIs for the service advisors. Let's make a scorecard for success for the individual technicians. Like, what do they bring and how do they score? It can be pass fail. It can be, you know, A, B, C, D. But then if we track it and measure it, then we can figure out, you know, who the star players are, who the star contributors are, and then figure out a way to reward them for it.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. Hunt, I know you believe that productivity is a high number that your clients need to look at. How does this whole Moneyball concept play with you?
Yeah, I think that the cool analogy here, especially using the NBA, because I think the stats in the NBA are the most relevant to what we're doing, is if we're comparing this to the NBA, you know, tech flag hours and how much production they have is what we would probably consider points for the NBA, right? It's a stat that everyone cares about. It's a stat that everyone measures. But it's also, there's players in the NBA where their points are higher and maybe disparagingly higher than anyone else because they're taking those points away from other people. Right. And so where you would kind of equate that to a shop is, yeah, you got this guy that's flagging 60 hours, but is he flagging 60 hours because he is working that much harder? Or is he hoarding all of this work at the detriment of other technicians and ultimately at the detriment of the shop? You know, versus if you have that role player that's very balanced, it says, hey, I'm going to win when I win, but some of this stuff I'm going to get an assist for. I'm going to pass this off because I should not be doing this. I'm going to give Chris some work. I'm going to give Matt some work. And so instead of me getting 60 hours and the rest of the team getting 30, I'm going to get 30 hours and another 3 guys are going to get 30. Now we're at 120 for the shop. Because obviously all of the classic metrics of flat rate and flat rate pay rewards one person for what they're doing. But if you're a shop owner, I don't necessarily care. You know, if you are all my technicians, I don't care what Chris does. I don't care what Matt does. I don't care what Brian, Kim does. I want this shop to produce 150 hours. And however we can do this in the most equitable way is going to be the most successful thing for me as the shop owner.
Thanks for that. Chris, I got to go to you next. Kim, I've got something to ask you in a sec. Bear with me, but this prompted me to ask this of Chris. The premise of Moneyball in the beginning was to put people on the bench that could get on base. And in your case of doing some kind of analysis, if you will, that you were talking about in technicians, could getting on base or the level of contribution be in your test?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that I pushed the last year or so is, wherever you stand on the tech crisis or shortage or whatever is one thing, but in the industry, we've done a terrible job of bringing support staff in. And if I'm looking at productivity and what bogs us down in productivity, if you have an A-Tech that's got to stop and do an oil service and a tire rotation, when he can knock out a water pump and timing belt that pays 8 hours and 3 hours, then that tanks us in one direction. So what we did is we came up with a Production Apprentice program, and we pulled people in to do A-level type inspections. And what they do is they do the inspections, they complete what they complete, but then they put that higher paying, higher productivity work back into the pipeline. And then off topic or whatever. But what we're also doing with these entry level Production Apprentice people is we're paying them an hourly wage. We're paying them a couple dollars hour kicker for what they do, but we're doubling that for what they put in the pipeline that goes up to the upper technicians. So we're teaching them to be productive, find the work, and if they can't do it, move it forward. But if you look at it, like all of those are like assists, right, to the big star players. And what it does is it just increases productivity for everybody in the shop. And then before you know it, you've got a guy that's been there 6 months and he's billing out 40 hours a week, but he's putting in the pipeline 120 hours.
Thank you for bringing up the Production Apprentice. I had written that down, and I was going to actually ask you to cover that. And in one of your episodes, you did talk about the Production Apprentice.
Yeah.
Chris, I talk about this all the time. I think it is a genius title to a GS individual, because I think it means so much more to the shop by having an individual that can be in even a bigger support role based on that title. And I think we could coach, teach, mentor that person.
Yeah, and what it does is, like, depending on skill level and what you do, you can train that. And so, I even have a PDF, like an 8-week training program. If anybody wants it, they can email me and then I can send it out, or maybe we can put it in the notes somewhere. Like where you start week 1 with that person and whatever, and then you train them up, and hopefully if you've done it well, 6 to 8 months later, they're doing breaks, they're doing other services, and then, oh my gosh, you have to hire another Production Apprentice because this guy's doing 30, 40, 50, 60 hours a week in just breaks and other stuff, and you're raising the level. But that goes into like training and all kinds of other stuff that I probably don't want to take us down right now. But and again, we just looked at it from the fact that, okay, we can't get technicians, but we have all these people that could be great people, and one of the reasons they wash out or leave is because they don't know where they're going. There's no path forward, and they just lose interest. So you really have to crank those people up.
Let me bring Kim into the discussion, and then let's just have an open discussion for the remainder of the show. The title of this episode is "Numbers Don't Lie; They Also Don't Tell the Truth," and we call this our Moneyball episode. And Kim, in relating to that, part of what you guys did as shop owners back in North Carolina was, and Brian was telling me that this gentleman he's talking about never had a comeback. There's got to be a huge rating for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of that, and I'm thinking from the HR seat that I'm sitting in for Shop Marketing Pros, we have adjusted, how we hire people here. And it goes back to the experience that we had with the shop. And a lot of times I'm thinking of that specific guy because it's the consistency that they bring. We call all of our team members leaders, and they all are in their own right. But in our core values, leadership is one of them. And when we're recognizing our team members, it comes from them nominating each other for something we call the Shieldies. And I've been thinking about it all week as we were preparing for this episode today. And I went back and I was looking. It's funny to me that so many of our current team members who are submitting nominations for other team members, it's very often things like them referencing the consistency or the quality. It's rarely ever that they're pointing out that someone is a superstar because they're doing this many fill in the blank, talking about stats or how many posts they're doing or how many ads they're doing. It's always referencing the quality of the person. And so oftentimes when we're hiring someone, I'm less looking for the actual, hey, do you have this specific skill? But I'm looking more at the type of person they are, which leads to, are you coachable? Are you going to be a good team player? And so when you think about the shop, a lot of these people, and I think Matt mentioned it first, some of them, just like in the movie last night, they were support. They were the support people. And so they might not be the rock stars that you think of. It's the ones that are making the whole team better. Like Hunt was saying, they're contributing in a way that when you step back and look at the whole picture, what is that quote? Brian's going to laugh because I always screw these things up, but
A rising tide
Tide.
lifts all boats.
Yeah. So there you go.
A rising tide lifts all boats. Let me see if I thought I had a picture here and I don't. Oh, darn son of a gun. I thought. Anyway, thank you for that. Hey, I'm gonna stop for our sponsors in a minute. Matt, I'm gonna yield over to you and let's have a vibrant discussion on this entire Moneyball episode. Hey, how do you win over younger customers? Well, you let them see their repair in progress, rusty parts and all. You update them with live chats and invite them to pay with their phones. That's why you need shopware.com. And I'm sorry. And when you turn to Delphi Technologies for your chassis needs, quality is always forefront. Material and dimensional enhancements, as well as 700 hours worth of salt spray testing, goes into each and every chassis part produced. Visit DelphiAftermarket.com to see over 8,000 chassis parts Delphi has in stock. So honored to be part of the Aftermarket Radio Network with this entire team. Well over 1.2 million downloads this team has over our lifetime of being together. Matt, again, I go back to great talking points that we had on this. Please cover the SEAL Team 6-piece because I think it has some reference here.
Yeah, and I wanted to jump to piggyback off what Hunt was saying, like that the team, right? It's I'm probably a broken record when I say about the team or the organism. It works together. We've got different, areas of the shop, the front of house, the back house, they have to work together to get that end goal of, desired profit. And because that team's in mind, or with that idea of team in mind, it became very important what Simon Sinek says about his discussions and studying of the SEAL teams, about thinking a SEAL team or SEAL Team 6, whatever, they would be made up of the best of the best of the best of the best, just the highest performing individuals. They're, robotic or just next level athletes, killers, whatever. And it turns out that's not the case. There may be some like that, but they're super rare. SEAL teams are made up of people that are high trustworthiness. So it's, a graph made with performance, trustworthiness. And of course, perfect world would be high performance, high trustworthiness. That would be, great. It just doesn't exist in great numbers. So they value trustworthiness over performance. They would rather have lower performing individuals who are very trustworthy over just purely high performance, low trustworthiness. So, do I trust you with my life? Do I trust you with my wife is the difference. And they go after the trust them with their wife, that they got their back. They're going to work together. They're going to work as a team. And there's so many examples of this on YouTube, just watching the Buds or Hell Week, where they have to do these team activities. The ones that succeed work together. They pick the guy up that's tripping and falling. They work together. It's not me. And when you have this type of a setting and this kind of a thought process, I think you can start looking at current employees as well as perspective. What do I value? Like, I'm looking at these numbers and boy, they really turn the hours, but man, I'm picking up bad vibes about this personality. Like, am I bringing something caustic in? am I better off taking somebody that I had pretty good vibes with, seemed to get along with everybody just in the walkthrough, even though their numbers aren't quite as high? And it's stuff to think about. I'm not really telling anyone what to do, but I think it's got to be thought about. And then just not to suck up all everybody's time. Sorry. The numbers don't lie, but they also don't tell the truth. We can't talk about that without mentioning Simpsons Paradox. We have to, because nobody gets taught that. I don't know anybody that went to high school and was taught in statistics Simpsons Paradox. But what it essentially is you can look at statistics, you can look at these numbers and derive two answers or whatever that are 180 degrees different, yet the numbers say they're true. And where this becomes a problem is humans are very, very biased. We're loaded with confirmation bias. So we look for things that back up our worldview. So if I'm thinking that this person's low performance because of effort, and I pull numbers, even though Simpsons Paradox is at work, these numbers could point to two different directions. Guess which one I'm going to side with? So that's why I think it's important to consider that numbers don't lie, but they don't necessarily tell the truth either.
It's amazing, guys. I know I wanted to give this over to you, but I'm always motivated by something that Matt just said here. We've all, trust me, I've done it. You've let a low trust person go and the whole team rises. Everybody's shaking their head. Yeah. If you're listening through audio, everyone's shaking their head. And it's amazing to know that someone with high values that's reliable and consistent as a team player that may not be, as we were saying, the most productive person, but they're like glue. They're like good stitching. They keep everything together. And sometimes people come in and they see this individual, as you guys were saying, Kim, Brian, 30 hours, and they're there. Everybody says, wow, the brick is here.
Well, or go ahead.
I was just going to say, those people, I loved that video from Simon Sinek. And I kept thinking, everybody, you automatically think you want someone who's high performing and high trustworthy. But when you really kind of back up and look at it, those who are high performing, very often they're egotistical, they're self-centered. But then you think about the ones who are trustworthy and the rest of the team, who are they going to go to when they need something? They're going to go to the trustworthy person. And a lot of times the one who's high performing, they think they have some secret. They can't share how well they did this or how well they did that. And so I think that plays, that's just a huge part of it. I loved that piece when they were explaining that. So I was really glad that you shared that, Matt.
We'll have the link in the show notes. Chris?
So I had a thought on the scorecard for success, because I've always built it around the team, and not the individual. So while we were talking, I scribbled it down, like what 5 to 6 criteria could I do for an individual person to measure this? And so you're going to notice I'm not going to mention productivity at all. Number 1 is comebacks, 2 is punctuality, 3 is good attitude, 4 is trained, and that's a big thing because everybody seems to, all the technicians that I run across seem to think that it's okay not to train anymore because they have us over barrel. And then 5th is goes out of their way to help others. And when I say that, it could be other technicians, it could be service advisors, it could be seeing somebody, maybe you've got this technician that's he's by the front door and everybody comes in and stops him and says hi, and he's the one airing up tires and doing all the free stuff that nobody talks about. Maybe that's it. So maybe that's a quick thing for everybody to think about for like a scorecard for those people. And pay plans is a big thing, because a lot of times when we do pay plans, we pit everybody against each other and not as a team, but you have to have the culture to do that. Recently I had the pleasure of doing a pay plan for somebody on the West Coast. The minimum wage is like $13.10 now, $14 an hour. Everybody, including the owner, gets minimum wage. Doesn't matter who you are, what you do. You push a broom, you're the A tech, B tech, everybody gets minimum wage. And then at the end of the week, they check gross profit and everybody splits the gross profit, a percentage of it. And that's what you get paid. And they thrive in that. They are like, okay, I got to build this ticket. I got to hurry. I got to hustle. I got to do this. And all these pay plans have their merits, but you have to find the one that works for your people and incentivize greatness.
Yeah, one of the things that I think that we see a lot too is you never have a technician or really any employee that doesn't have some redeeming quality, right? And so the ones with the terrible attitude that, are awful to deal with, no one likes to be around, they play their music too loud, they're flagging like 60 hours a week, right? You can't get away with that and then also not be a producer. Same that you see in sports, like, hey, you can't have a big personality, be a knucklehead, be getting arrested, but we're not going to drop any names here, and don't know what type of sports fans we're listening to. But if you're the star athlete, maybe if you're the quarterback, there's a certain amount of stuff that we'll let you get away with, and we'll look the other way on it. And I feel like that there's a lot of shop owners, especially I see people as they kind of grow with their business, because when you first open a shop, I think most people say, hey, I want a team full of 60-hour producers. I want killers out here that are going to be able to do this. But then as you see people grow with their business, they're like, I don't want 3 people 60 hours. Maybe I still want that one guy that doesn't have the best attitude that can just knock out work. But I want people that are going to be able to have a good attitude, because I value that more than just straight hours going out the door.
Well, in the end, it has to be a great place to work, right? Or else you're going to have turnover for technicians and everything, and everybody else. Like I early on in my career, I probably lost really, really great technicians because I wasn't paying attention enough when somebody came to me and said, hey, I'm leaving, to investigate it further and be like, why are you leaving? Like, what's the, like, I think we did one about exit interviews not too long ago. And that's part of it. Like, you have to be aware of what's going on in the shop in order to do this. Because if you're not aware at all, then this whole thing goes out the window.
We keep talking about strengths, and I see Bill Connor posted about the strengths, and I think Hunt, you just mentioned it as well. There are so many tools out there, and I think, Brian, remind me, I feel like we did this at our shop, which was many years ago, but we're starting to look at implementing that even more here in our business now, with regard to personality assessments, or whatever you want to call them, Strengths Finder 2.0. You can really learn a lot about people, and you can't really manipulate those, right? They ask like the same thing 5 different ways, and you might try to, I really want someone trustworthy. Let me answer it this way. You can't fool those assessments, and it really pulls out some of these exact things we're talking about. How do you really grade or give a score to someone when you're talking about these character traits? But those assessments really pull that out. And I don't know if y'all have been using those if anybody uses those in the shop. I feel like you did a podcast on that once, Carm, but those things are, they're real.
Yeah, where was really popular. I think Big 5 is now like the dominant personality type quiz used by the psychological community.
Yeah.
Where you really find out about people, though, is when things go wrong. I'm going to be a little bit vulnerable here. So we made a big mistake for one of our clients here a couple of weeks ago. It actually goes back further than that, probably about 6 weeks ago when it started. We've got the specialty shop that we work with that they rebuild a very specific type of heavy duty truck, and they have nationwide ad campaigns. So we're talking about pretty big budgets that we're working with, and we were working with Google on this to make sure that everything was set up right, and it wasn't. And it blew through $12,000 worth of ad budget in a very short period of time without producing any results at all. And when I found out about this immediately, it was like, that is not my client's problem. That is my problem. So, there was no question about who was going to pay for that mistake. And we've talked to the client. We let them know, hey, we're covering this. That's our mistake. $12,000 coming out of our pocket to take care of this. But this was done. It was settled. It was over with. But the young lady who I have, working for us, who was running those ads, actually messaged me yesterday and said, hey, I need to talk to you about something. and I call her up, talk to her, and she says, I found something where I messed up that contributed to this even more. And when she did that, I was blown away, because I would have never known had she never said anything to me. And when you talk about the trustworthiness and the way that I will look at her going forward, like, I will never, ever wonder, is she telling me the truth about something? Because she sets the bar for integrity in our business. And, everyone else that sees that, do you think that someone else is going to lie about something, especially something little, when, they see somebody come to me with a big issue like that? And then, of course, a lot of it has to do with too how we react to things like that, as the owners of the business. But, from a trustworthiness standpoint, she just made a fan for life out of me, as if she wasn't already.
Be sure you nominate her for an award.
But don't you think that is like something that is so common that, culture is contagious, right? And just as quickly as, you probably share that with the rest of your team, and they're like, okay, hey, not only was that a cool thing, also, kudos to you guys and being able to handle it well and not chopping her hands off like, oh, I never knew that. Now that I know this, I'm going to punish you even worse, right? Like, let's reward people for, being vulnerable and being honest about that. But it's also a lot of times you see this in a shop too, or really any business. You have the canary in the coal mine. It's like, so if you allow bad attitudes or bad habits to go on, everyone else is kind of looking at that, right? So if you have that guy that's always showing up late, but he's that top producer, you know what? We're going to let that slide for him. And then if I'm another technician, I'm like, well, why do I have to come on time? Or maybe I'll start showing up late. Same thing. It's like, hey, you know what? Service advisor, service manager dispatches this work. I know Steve is always going to scream at a service advisor. He doesn't want that crap. And so it's, again, this is contagious around there, and so being able to reward some of this good behavior, and hopefully that becomes more contagious than some of this negative, cancerous energy that can sometimes happen.
It's a great point. I want to go back to the movie, since I watched it last night again for the second time, and it is so fresh in my mind. They put a player on first base who wasn't a first baseman and said, teach him. And so, to your point about training, Chris, and I'm huge on training as a pillar of the strategy of the company, training. And I thought listen, this guy hits base hits. We have no other place. Put him on first base. He doesn't know how to play first base. Teach him how to play first base. And someone asked him, what do you have the most fear of? And he says, somebody hits the ball to me. I mean, but you can't train someone unless you know if they admit to you that they have a weakness in the learning curve, right? So I think it's a great movie to share with your leadership team and in every one of our businesses and say, does anything here, can we relate to any of it, and how can we learn from it?
A ton.
I wish they would have shown maybe some of that, like how they trained him to become a first baseman. Because, right, as an industry, we suck at training people. Like, seriously, like onboarding and training is worse in our industry than anywhere else on the planet. Like, you bring in a new service advisor in with experience. Okay, here's your desk. Here's a point of sale. Here's a phone. Good luck. See you next week. Same thing with the technician. Here's your bay. Got your tools. Here's how you log in. Here's how you log out. Maybe I'm going to show you tablet. And then we're off to the races. And then 3 months later, when that person's always said he's flagged 50 hours, but he's flagged 30, and he's still trying to figure out where the oil filters are or whatever, you have to make that a process. And I really, really work hard with my clients. I've got one that we kind of had that issue with, and I was like, okay, just like the productivity assistant, we're going to come up with a 6-week training plan for a new employee, period, what their experience is. So we brought in a new technician that we really, really needed. And it was a week before we let him turn a wrench. Like, the first day, he shadowed the service advisors to see what they do. The second day, he was with his mentor out in the shop. The third day, all he did was write fake DVIs to learn how we wanted them. And so instead of pushing everybody out there, can you imagine how that movie would have turned out if they just thrown him on first base and been like, good luck? And that's what we do. And we throw our hands up when people leave and quit and wash out and everything else, but it's all our own fault. Sorry, I don't even know where I was going with that, but anyway, that's what popped into my head.
Well, it's true though about training people and onboarding and all of that. There's a study that was done with employees about what they want most from their employer, and this kind of blew me away. And I honestly didn't really believe it at first when I heard it, but the study showed that the thing they want most is access to the owner of the business. Like they want to be able to learn from them. They want to be able to like have a relationship with them. They want that mentorship. And one of the things that I've recently done in my own business was make it very, very clear to all of our people that I am here. Like if you need something from me, I am here. And, coming from the world of auto repair, I was a diagnostic tech. And the funny thing about diagnostics is that once you really learn the diagnostic process, it's not just about cars. It's about everything. If you can diagnose a car, you can diagnose what's happening in a business. You can diagnose what's happening in marketing. The principles are the same all the way, through. And I've been able to work with my team and begin to teach them that diagnostic process, and they're learning skills on the marketing side of things that is making them better. And it's all because I made it a point to prove to, to show them I'm here and I'm available and I want to work with you, when you need some help.
Such a great point, Matt. I want you to go next, but I need to, wow. Diagnosing the Aftermarket A to Z is the name of Matt's podcast. And you just nailed it, Brian. Just exactly how Matt not only looks at any challenge he has in the shop, but in life too. Matt?
Yeah, and going back to the movie too, building on what you're saying, there's a couple other things that go on that I really, really like. So I think you can take this movie and watch it, regularly, like annually. And another idea is at some point, Billy Bean, Brad Pitt's character, goes around and talks to specifically David Justice, but kind of everyone to get them on board with the team goal. What are we trying to do here? Buy into the system. If I can get everyone to buy into the system and trust me, trust the coaches, what we're trying to do here, we're going to work better together and we're going to achieve this goal. And I thought that was really important because I think a lot of times not everybody knows exactly where they fit in. That kind of like Brian and Chris are saying, like, here's your keys, here's your station, here's your spot, get to work. And not only are you fumbling around with just that specific task, but you don't know where you fit in the system. And the other thing I really liked is the Peter Brand character, Jonah Hill, sitting with all the players and watching video and talking about weaknesses or strengths and pointing it out, saying, suspension work, you're maybe the best I've ever seen. But when we get you in powertrain or something like that, things dip. I've been watching you, and I think some of it's a comfort level, or some of it's, when you're working on suspension systems, you have your cart, you have all these tools kind of ready to go. But when you're working on powertrain stuff, you don't do that. And I think that could really help. Might be just little things pointing out. I thought that was really important, like helping your people succeed at every position. Service advisor, observing. Yeah, you can sit back, look at the numbers, but sometimes it's good to just sit back and watch, observe, and maybe talk to a customer on their way out, meet them at the car. Like, hey, can I have a couple minutes? What do you think? What would you give me for some advice? What would you like to see different? And then go back with some data, not right away, just run in after I talking to that customer and light into them. But hey, I've been watching you now for a few weeks. You do this so well. I have some ideas though. What do you think? And when you approach it the right way, not that we always have to handle people with kid gloves, but a lot of times they appreciate that, because ultimately I am trying to help you succeed, because if you succeed, everybody succeeds.
Hey, let me stop for one final minute. We'll come back and we'll do our final segment C. Hey, don't just imagine how much more profit you can make on every part. Tap into the Parts Gross Profit Optimizer and watch your profits grow. Better yet, Its algorithm does the work so your brain doesn't have to. Talk to my friends at Shopware at getshopware.com. Hey, with over 2,300 SKUs and 95% sales coverage on fuel pumps, Delphi has everything you need to replace your customer's fuel pump. From OEM quality pumps, modules, GDI pumps, and fuel tank cleaning supplies to instructional videos. Get started at DelphiAftermarket.com. You know, Chris brought up training. Chris, I've written blogs on it. We've done shows on it, and I'm getting to the point where I'm hating to just in what I do and what we all do to advance the aftermarket, just this lip service. Okay, you know, sometimes we just talk about it, and we recently did an episode on how you do these things. Okay, we need to go out and talk to the parents. Well, exactly how is that done? It's almost like, let me show you tab A, slot B. And we talk about mentor. We drop mentor mentee all the time. Chris, it's like saying, yeah, no one knows what it really is. No one knows the structure, the disciplines about it. And in about 3 weeks, we're going to do an episode, mentor mentee. And there's some software out there. There's a company out there that will assess mentors and mentees and literally set up the training program to make everything that team, mentor mentee, has to do to make you at your pleasure of moving them through the ranks, because we all know that not every seniorist person is the best mentor. So we're going to do that soon.
That's cool. Yeah. I did have one thing to talk about what Matt was talking about. So it's easy for Billy Bean, Brad Pitt to go around and have these conversations with people, but shop owners are not typically great communicators, and they're super scared of confrontation. So guess what's not going to happen? Either one of those things. So you have to work your way through these uncomfortable moments. And if you go back, I don't know what episode it is, but Weekly Blitz, it's eating the elephant or the notebook technique. You go in, you have a meeting with every one of your employees every week, every 2 weeks to start, and you start having these conversations. And the more you have them, the easier it will be for you. I'm not going to get into the structure of it and everything like that. But if you're hiding in your office and you're ducking these uncomfortable moments and you're not looking for teaching coachable moments, then what you allow is what will continue, and it's never going to get better. You're never going to advance your business. You're just going to suck less.
Aftermarketradio.com. Click on Chris's pretty face on that homepage. And then when you get to his little mini website, it's episode 26.
Okay,
on,
thank you.
Eating the elephant.
Carm has them all memorized, right? He already knew what that was.
No, he looked it up real quick. Yeah.
I looked it up.
I think one thing that hasn't been brought up, that is a big part of Moneyball, what they were trying to do, is also the profitability side of this, right? Yep. Because if you go to sports, like, you could build the best team ever, especially in baseball where, there is no true salary cap. There's excise tax and luxury tax and stuff like that. But, if you wanted to go and you wanted the best technicians, then put out an ad that you're going to pay the top technician $400,000 a year. You can pull people from all over the country, and they'll come and they'll probably do a really, really good job for you because you're the only person paying that much. And you could go down the list and you could have the highest paid lube tech in the country, highest paid service advisor, and you could pull in the dream team, but you're probably never going to make any money, right? And there might be some people sitting here right now that are thinking about their shop of like, I have the best people, I pay the most money, but I'm the lowest paid person here because it doesn't really work. And so all about what you're trying to do here is you're trying to do that fine balance, right? So you're like, I want the top people, I want to pay them super well, but at the end of the day, this is still a business. And, that's where I kind of thought of this was when Chris was talking about the apprentice, right? The role players, the general service that are really the glue that not only holds the team together from a culture wise, those are also really the people that are driving profit, right? If you can have this hourly kid that's making $16 an hour, now he's not doing diagnostic work, but maybe he's flagging 30 hours. that is like the golden goose right there, because he is just printing you money, and being able to balance this team of like super high paid, super high performer with kind of these cheap, I shouldn't say cheap, that's probably derogatory, but these higher efficiency from a dollars and cents type standpoint is huge. And you see that on a team, right? Hey, you got that player that is in there for the league minimum, but he is really doing, way above what he's getting paid, versus these guys that, they're costing you a fortune. Well, they better give you a ton of results.
Well, 114 million was the Yankees payroll versus the 39 million that that Oakland Athletics had. And of course, they went into the next year and did 20 games in a row. I believe it's a stat that still hasn't been broken, with a ragtag team. And so the beauty of the entire movie is you can assemble it if the heart and the soul and the trust and people can perform their basic role.
Now, can we have one more thing on that? Because there is a downside, and I see this also in shops as well. So I'm unfortunately an Orioles fan, right? And anyone that follows baseballs knows if you have someone good on the Orioles will not pay them. So that person is going to become good. The fans are going to get attached to it. And as soon as free agency hits, we've lost that person. And I see that a lot also with business owners as well. Like, hey, if you want to keep these people around, on sports, it's mostly just pay, right? They don't care what their coach says to them. If you give me a good contract, I'll stay here. But it's like continuity is the exact opposite of probably profit in some situations. Hey, if you want to keep this team around, if you want to keep this team together, you better take care of them, you better empower them, and you better pay them accordingly. Now, if you only care about profit and you want to just, not that Peter Angelos, the owner of the Orioles, is doing this, but it's pretty much what he is focusing solely on profit. So he says, you know what, we're going to keep the lower farm system team or farm system players in there because our revenues are still up here, but we're keeping our payroll down low. But what happens is now we have a revolving door where anyone says, oh, hey, I love Adam Jones. Well, Adam Jones is gone. Manny Machado's gone, right? All of these players, once they find some success, just leave. And you don't want that to be your business.
That's a great point, Hunt.
Well, we had a great camp meeting on Monday, and I think a lot of stuff has happened out of it. But a long conversation short, we're talking about bringing in people, getting ATEX $45, $50 an hour. And I was having a follow-up conversation with a shop owner, and this outdated thinking or mode of thought, he's like, you want me to advertise for a technician for $50 an hour? And he goes, I guess you want me to pay all my other technicians $50 an hour too now. And I'm like, exactly. And he flopped like a fish for like 6 minutes. It was just like this big mouth open, gasping for air, flop, 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 flop. And again, it's just the outdated thinking. Like, people, you have to let anything you knew before 18 months ago go. Yeah. And it's new. And guess what? Your next 18 months is going to be brand new. Yeah. So what you're thinking about today is nothing 2 years from now.
Stretch, try it.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yes. Wow. We have a podcast dream team here. Thank you all for finding the time in your schedule to come here to talk about the Moneyball movie, or Numbers Don't Lie. They also don't necessarily tell the truth. I thought this was great. It was all about our peoples and their capabilities and things they put together. I'm going to go around the room. Matt, Hunt, Coach Chris, Kim, and then Brian will each have anything left that you'd love to cover. And then we'll say goodbye to our great audience. Matt?
I'm tapped.
You got something. No. I know you do.
I guess I don't want to imply all this is so easy. I guess first I want to campaign that every shop installs a home theater and uses that to watch any movie and try to apply it to auto repair. Then also that I don't want to imply that this is so easy to do, that when I start thinking about the systems and processes and all the intricacies of generating the goal of, desired profit, ethical profit, I sometimes get overwhelmed thinking about all the little things that apply and can contribute. So But I think it's very valuable to think about and put yourself in a very good position to be able to do it. Have the time to study it, be it study the numbers, make sure you check your bias at the door, and then just sit back and watch. Even if you've got video cameras, just to sit back and watch, not to be hypercritical, but watch the process, watch how everybody works, and with the eye being the idea and your eye looking for ways to help them be better, remove obstacles. That's my favorite thing with management, is how can I remove the obstacles preventing you from doing your best work and enjoying yourself as much as possible, right?
Thanks, Matt. We had a great comment, and I'm just looking for that comment again, and it was from Bill Connor. Great topic and timely based on the aftermarket. Thanks for that comment that it was a great topic. I have to tell you, this entire team, and including myself and all the episodes that we've done, over 1,000 episodes, we got some great content on there. And if anyone is saying, where do I go for this information? We as a collective team have it. And I have to tell you, there's some of the most cutting edge concepts and theories and ideas and business acumen in the entire Aftermarket Radio Network. So again, I'm honored to have you all here. Matt, by the way, this isn't the last movie episode that we're going to do. We've been chatting about other things. Tracy just mentioned we should do an episode on Miracle.
Just because it's hockey. Come on.
Which is interesting. but Matt and I and Tracy actually got together and said how we have to do an episode about the Godfather movies.
Yes.
So that may be coming. That may be coming.
I'm in on Godfather, out on hockey.
Thank you, Chris. Hunt, your final comments.
We'll see Tracy's Miracle and Razor slap shot.
Yeah, no, I think the big thing is, well, first off, Matt, this was an awesome idea. I think when you first said it, I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. But the more and more, it's like, wait, there is so many parallels here, right? But no, I think that the biggest thing that I see on this one is, like you said, it's not easy. And you really got to dictate what you want your business to look like. If you are focused 1,000% on profit, then yeah, get the team in place. Who cares about the culture, numbers, and maybe run your crew completely understaffed. Now, if you want a long-term successful business that's ultimately going to be easier for you as a business owner to run, then you got to have the right team in place, right? You got to be able to balance a budget, be able to fill in people in the right spots, find deals where you can, and create an environment that is conducive of that. But yeah, just like Matt said, this is easier said than done. This is not something that happens overnight, but you got to have a plan. You got to have a vision of what you want it to look like before it's just going to magically appear.
Thanks so much, Hunt. Coach Chris.
Leave the gun, take the cannoli. Again, on this topic of, everybody's fat, happy, lazy. The last 2 years have been great. People are stacking up money. I've never had as many shop owner vacation all the time. It's crazy. Get out from behind the desk, or if you're not in your office, get behind the desk. Have the uncomfortable conversations. Look for people in your company that need to be coached and coach them. Think back when you were in the same role. What did you want from your owner? And give your people what you didn't have. And just be an active participant. All right.
Great advice, Chris. Kim, you got to go on mute, off mute, Kim. Thank
Sorry.
you.
Yep. The only thing that I really have left is the main character, Billy Bean, right? He was put in the position as a player way too early. And we all saw what happened is that he really bombed out. He wasn't ready. He was too young. He probably still needed to go to college and get some of that training that we're talking about. So I think it's really about being careful about putting people in a position before they're ready.
Wow, how powerful.
That's
what a
awesome.
Great wrap up. That's a key. It goes to training and mentoring right there. Wow. Thanks for that, Kim. Brian?
There was one other thing that I saw in the movie that stood out to me a little bit. There's a scene where David Justice is in the locker room and he's going up to the soda machine and he's hitting the button. Nothing's coming out. And one of the guys comes by and is like, you got to put $1 in there. And he's like, are you kidding me? And what is that thing in your shop? You may not be able to afford the top dollar players, but you can create a work environment for them that is better than anywhere else. What are the things that you can provide? Are your techs having to still pay for their own gloves? Do you have things like, a lot of shops now, they've got sodas and candy bars and stuff for their clients. Do you have that for your staff? What are the little things that you can do that will take care of them, that are just enough to say, you know what, I appreciate you, that could make an impact in your business?
Profound.
Hang on. So Brian, I've got a client that they shut down one extra day a month. Like, they have one, if they can wrap it around a holiday, they'll have a 4-day weekend. But if there's not a holiday, they close down on a Friday and give everybody a 3-day weekend. And so that takes the whole shop out of productivity for one day. And basically we're calling it a mental health day, but the guy still does over $200,000 a month being shut down one day less than everybody else.
It's like Chick-fil-A being closed on Sundays.
Yeah. Where did I recently
That's a sore
see?
subject, Kim. We're not going to talk about that. They need to change that. No one wants Chick-fil-A more than on a Sunday. It's
This is
just
true.
not fair.
So true.
Yeah, but we need a fleet of trucks to park in Chick-fil-A and say not Chick-fil-A and be open on Sunday with our little chicken trucks. Make a fortune.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Huh? Just park in the drive-through and let them go right by you.
Yep.
See, these are entrepreneurs, capitalists.
Right.
Right here. Matt Fonslow, Chris Cotton, Hunt Demarest, Kim and Brian Walker. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
sir.
Carm.
Thank you.